So let's talk about the Cyclops in Battletech and the place that this kind of curiosity has. Now, this is a great example of a mech where, more than any other war game, Battletech has such a rich narrative, and that narrative has directly influenced the unit, influenced the models, influenced the type of tech that's been developed. I mean, there are mechs out there that the corporation selling them knew the mechs were garbage. But if they could just get enough of them into service with the Star League, who cares if it works? It's very Ed 209. Who cares if it works? The contract on parts and maintenance alone will ensure that we have dividends and return to our shareholders like no time on there. So you start to read, or you read some corporation that engineered some mech just to perform in the Civil War. That's all it was intended for a very, very specific role, like the Vulcan. And now, because of the succession wars and the timeline advancing, any mech is going to be amazing. So you have like a Vulcan fighting out in the open against certain mechs, and on the tabletop you get trashed, and you're like, why was this mech even invented? So you really have to look and see where the narrative fits, and then from a tabletop perspective, figure out how can we best utilize that. The Cyclops, I feel more than ever, is one of those mechs. So if we have the command and control, think about the narrative for a second. You have a Cyclops, and it hasn't been stripped of the command and control equipment and the electronics. As a mech commander, that's going to be huge. I mean, I always envision it as the Cyclops is on the battlefield actually directing and tracking the lances and the mechs and the support units, piping in the info back to the mobile HQ behind enemy lines. It's got the hollow maps and kind of all that, tracking the immediate area and kind of the battlefield and the war, multi-dimensional on there. A Cyclops is some really powerful, interesting tech. Something comparable, kind of the assault version of the Ost Scout type mech. But on the tabletop, even if you're playing with the quirks, essentially it's an underwhelmed, undergunned assault mech on there that's a little bit pricey for what it is. The armor is okay. The speed is kind of okay. But you expect a little more bite for what it brings. Compare the Cyclops to an Awesome or an Atlas on there. I'm not saying it's a bad mech, but the narrative direction of it definitely makes it interesting to play. So that said, you've got a Cyclops in your collection, or you're going to play it, or you just like the mech. There's a number of mechs that I play that if we go whack, WAAC, win at all costs, they're not the best selection. But there's just something about them, and I want to play them. And in terms of the Cyclops, when I'm playing kind of a Lance Commander, or I'm playing a narrative game where now the big boy's got to step in, that Cyclops, he makes an appearance. The fearless leader is there to command and to control. Likewise, when I play a mission that might have scout or recon elements to it, I will roll up with an Ost Scout. Kind of going and checking out and scanning and stuff on there. Are there better light mechs? Yes, absolutely. So we want to be able to exist in that narrative, to play in that narrative. I feel like the Cyclops, the narrative of it, the weapon output is there to defend itself. It can defend itself if attacked, but if it has to go on the attack, how do we do that? If the electronics were stripped and you've inherited this mech, and now it's like you're running in there with the big boys, right? You're running in there with the Awesome and the Atlas and kind of the Banshee. Banshee's an interesting mech. How do we do that on there? How do we utilize that? So stock. LRM-10, I'm going to be shooting that on the way in. And I don't have any other long-range weapons, so I don't have to worry about heat. I'm not really worried about ammo. If I can take that shot, even if I need 12s, as soon as we are in range, I'm going to start shooting. I'm probably not going to have someone spotting indirect because I'm not going to be hanging back in that role because I don't have the redundancy in the mech itself to effectively bombard with indirect LRM attacks. And it's only a 10-pack. It's a 15, 20, maybe. That's why I like longbows. I've got the 220s, I've got the 25s. If you have the archers, you've got the 220s. If you've got the bombardier, you have that on there. So I wish it had a little bit more to warrant an indirect role, but it doesn't. But at least you have something to do on the way in that has some potential spread and some potential damage in there. The main weapon loadout of the medium lasers, the SRM, I believe it's a 4-pack, and the autocannon 20. That wants me to close. That wants me to get up there. As long as I'm going to get close, or I define close as like 3 or 4 hexes, 1 or 2 hexes, or point blank, danger close. As long as I'm getting that close, I'm an assault mech. I've got 2 fists. I'm going to plan for close combat. I'm going to get up there, and I'm going to try and punch your head off. That literally. And those are pretty good odds in an assault mech on there. We're on the different table, 1 in 6 chance. Kicking, I could kick if I had to. I've had a lot of bad experiences kicking. Had an awesome an Atlas mech, spend 3 or 4 turns trying to make that pilot check get up. So, but it is an option. Then there have been times literally where I've drop kicked. My assault mech has drop kicked some light mech trying to be sneaky and get behind me and just literally split the mech in half. It's an option. But punching, 1 in 6 chance, headshot, knock your head off literally, or at least even trying to challenge, make you make a pilot check for consciousness on there. We're going to do that on there. It's got the tonnage. It's got the weapons to support that. The autocannon 20 is in an interesting place since it is in the side torso, right torso, I believe. That means if I punch, then I still can fire that autocannon 20. That makes the Cyclops, in my book, a really effective and interesting close-in brawler. So I'm going to figure out, now, being an assault mech, I can't chase you down. I can't spend 2 or 3 game turns chasing you around. So what I'm going to do is try to identify on the tactics, try to identify on where you're going to meet my lance, or if there's a mission-specific objective like grab something or recon something, that's where I'm going to go. So I'm not going to charge and try to catch you on the table. I'm going to go where you're going, so literally our contact points pass. As soon as we're in range, I start firing off the LRM-10s. As soon as we get a little bit closer, long range, 9 hexes, I start firing off the medium lasers. As soon as we get within range, I start firing off that autocannon. As soon as we get to point blank, I'm going to start brawling, and I'm going to start hitting you with that autocannon. I may even fire off the LRM-10, and you know what? Even if I need 12s at that point blank, my movement, your movement, massively under the minimum modifiers, I'll still take it. From that perspective, with the armor, with the tonnage, Cyclops is a little bit fearsome. Cyclops is a good mech, but I do feel, as always, there are certain better choices if you're looking pure tactics. But from that narrative, it's a pretty interesting machine.